Amapa in Brazil. First of all, she's a Black woman, and she's also an educator and a farmer. And she's an activist and belongs to an organization called CONAQ. In addition, she's the president of the Quilombola Heritage Association of Alto Pirativa and manager of the Racial Equality Core Group at Marabajo Feprir Foundation. Next to me on my right is Simona Torotkoy from the European Roma Grassroots Organization Network. Simona is a Roma from Romania, currently a tutor at the Roma Graduate Preparation Program at CEU, and Simona has collaborated with Roma civil rights, civil society organizations such as the Roma Education Fund, ERGO Network, where she conducted research related to Roma children and youth on different topics. And discrimination experiences, unemployment, political participation. She's also working with partly with the Global Forum of Communities Discriminated on Work and Dissent, representing ERGO Network, and is also in charge of global advocacy at the UN in Geneva. And on my extreme right is Sonu Das, who belongs to the Dalit community from Bangladesh. Her organization is Dalit Women's Forum, and she's also a field supervisor with the Dalit Women Forum and a woman editor in the Bangladesh Dalit and Excluded Rights Movement. So as you can see, we have an excellent panel of women from the communities, from the different communities. So I'd like to start with Queen. Of course, the question is, how do we build solidarity? But if you can tell us a little bit about the context in which you live, and also a little bit about if there are any good practices that you see, you can highlight some of them.
Thank you, Bina. I want to mention that I will talk about the case of Africa. Africa has 54 countries, and we were able to identify communities discriminating work and dissent in about 27 of those countries. I mean, maybe now for the case, the sake of the audience, in person and online, I just want to highlight on these communities and about these countries too. I want to mention about the slave descent in Mauritania, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria, with the Haratins in Mauritania commonly known. We have the Tuareg people from Mali, Senegal, Liberia, Burkina Faso, who are still practicing caste life slavery between the nobles and the slave, under which we have the Mandika people, we have the Bela community, and the Wolof. I will mention about the Fuga people in Egypt, who are characterized by endogamy and also occupation known as unclean. I would like to mention the Fulani and the Mantika people in Mali, Senegal, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, and even Nigeria, who are looked as dirty and impure people, having social hierarchy. I will still continue with the also community in Nigeria facing bonded labor, the Wata in Kenya, known as the unwanted and unworthy community, the Twa in Burkina Faso, and also in DLC, where these communities are looked upon as useless people at the bottom of the society and are relegated to menial jobs. As Bina just mentioned, these communities are discriminated upon their descent, their occupation, their lineage, and even their identity, because they are the most segregated, excluded of the society at each level: economic, social, cultural. I would just like to mention about two cases of the violation that characterizes them. I want to mention here the issue of purity and pollution by taking just two cases. In Cameroon, in the northern part, the Savannah region, we have a community called the Ngoda community, who are regarded as the untouchable because the work they do is carrying grave digging, carrying dead corpses and remains of animals. It is alleged or said that touching them, you can contract a disease. It's called chicken pox if you come to have close contact, skin contact with them. Such a community also exists in Ghana, in the northern part of Ghana, called the Frafra, who are still undergoing manual scavenging. They carry the remains of dead people and do the manual scavenging with their hands. No community or no other person will want to have a relationship or integrate with those people. If I take the issue of segregation, these communities are segregated at public and even private places, communal areas like where they can carry water, at school, even in church. They are even segregated at death. In Gambia, for example, these communities have separate graveyards because of the issue of pollution and purity. Even at death, they have separate graveyards. The issue of forced labor, slavery and slave trade, where in Niger, Mali, these communities are called upon to work on farms, do agriculture for their masters with no or little pay. They also, as Bina just mentioned, where young girls in Nigeria dedicated to a priest as deities to do some form of bonded labor there with those priests. And also in Ghana, where we have the Chokosi practices, where young girls and women are dedicated also to a priest to serve in a shrine to pay for the atonement and the sins committed by their family members. Shall I conclude with the warehouse slave trade, where these young women from Niger are being given as loan, they are sold, they are given as marriage gift to the masters who uses them as commodities and do any sort of things they want to do with them. And even their children, while they are born, they have the status of slave. Bina asks, what are the good practices? As the UN program specialist for GFoD, we have started some initiative. At national level, we have been carrying out country visits where we go to these communities to actually hear them share their experiences, what they are going through, their needs, and looking into how we can identify different support in addressing their issues. Still in countries, we try to engage the states. We try to engage the National Human Rights Institution. We try to engage the diplomatic representation, bilateral and multilateral stake actors, to see how together we can address this issue by trying to know the machineries and the mechanism that I've put in place for these communities, and even to find out if they are aware of the existence of these communities. At the regional level, we are trying to engage with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which is an organ of the AU, for them to recognize the status of these communities and the respect of their rights, to an extent for them to put in place a study group so as to map the existence of these countries, of these communities in the other parts of the remaining countries among the 54. And at the UN and international level, we are trying to encourage CSOs and NGOs from those communities to actually engage with the UN in submitting shadow reports, statements at the level of the UPRU, the VNRU, and other UN and EU committees for their voices to be heard. Because if the victims speak by themselves, they are going to be heard, and we are going to have a solidarity from amongst those from the communities and out of the community. Thank you, Bina.
Thanks very much, Queen. Actually, when we listen to Queen, I'm sure that many of us from South Asia will wonder whether she's talking about Africa or Asia, because it's so similar, the kinds of discrimination that women face from these communities. So I'm going to just take a quick poll. I want all of you to raise your hand if you have heard of the communities discriminated on work and descent before this. Can you raise your hand? Who are the people who have heard? Yeah, that's quite a few actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, eight of you, 8, 9 of you from the from I think we are about 15 of us here, or maybe 20. Out from 20, about 9 of us have heard. That's a really good number. We hope that next time we do an event, all the people, 100% of you in the room should have heard of the women and people from the discriminated based on work and descent. So from Africa, I'm going to go to Brazil, and I'm going to request Patricia to quickly respond to these.
Boa tarde. Tá sendo? Boa tarde, que eu tô sem retorno aqui. Boa tarde, como a Bina já me apresentou, venho do extremo norte do... Não? Oi. Posso falar? Boa tarde novamente, como a Bina já me apresentou, venho do extremo norte do país, do Brasil. Me chamo Patrícia Costa, sou pedagoga, agricultora, gerente de núcleo de projetos de igualdade racial.
Okay, my name is Patricia, and I come from the state of Amapá. I'm a farmer, and I work with education, and I work with the group, the Quilombola group in Amapá, and I belong to CONAQ, which is and it's an honor to be here, and I'm breaking barriers and breaking I apologize. And it's an honor to be here, and I work for CONAQ, which is it's I apologize, I need to get my computer.
And I'm from the I am tearing down barriers for our inclusion, our participation. I belong to CONAQ, which is the national coordination mechanism for rural Quilombola women, who are organized on the national level. Listo.
Oi. Em pleno século XXI, continuamos falando de enfrentando a discriminação. As mulheres de comunidades discriminadas por trabalho, descendentes, de forma global, passam por situações semelhantes, pois são parte de grupos de povos de comunidades em situação de vulnerabilidade, que torna uma situação de mulheres ainda pior, pois elas são fragilizadas, que sofrem os maiores impactos de discriminação, por se tratar de mulher negra, mulher quilombola, e no Brasil as mulheres quilombolas são, na maioria das vezes, 3 vezes mais sofrem impacto pelo racismo e pela discriminação, pois são parte dessas comunidades discriminadas. A CONAQ, apesar de ser um movimento misto, criou o coletivo de mulheres para cuidar especificamente dessa pauta, que vem articulando politicamente, tanto no âmbito local, no âmbito regional e global, pelo reconhecimento e a efetivação de direitos das mulheres quilombolas do campo e as mulheres quilombolas em geral do Brasil.
So we have seen from the others also that the GFoD has united all these communities into one, because they share a very similar experience and kind of discrimination. We are Black Quilombola women in Brazil, and we face some of those very specific kinds of discrimination and exclusion systematically that we have heard of and that we see. But we have now united, and not only on the national and regional as we did before, also, but it's also a global struggle that we are united in, and are glad to participate to amplify further the voices of Black women and our whole community, the Quilombola.
Thank you, and thank you all for having patience. One of the things that we're trying to do is also to build language equity, and how we, not necessary that all of us speak the same language, but how do we extend that support to ensure that, you know, everybody's comfortable to share in the language that they are comfortable in. So please bear with us if we have any technical difficulties because of that. So I would now, from Brazil, would like to go to Bangladesh. We come back to Asia, and then we go to Europe. The same question to you, Sonu, that a little bit about the work that you do, and if there's any good practices that you can share, please do.
Thank you. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here. I would like to thank GFoD for organizing the empowering event and giving me the chance to speak today. I'm Sonurani Das from Bangladesh. I belong the Dalit community. Bangladesh is a home to an estimated 6.5 million people. Women represent half of the total population. Bangladesh women in Bangladesh suffer discrimination on different levels. Because of their caste status, they face discrimination from dominant caste and other groups in society. Within the own community, they experience discrimination based on work, gender, including interpersonal violence. Dalit women are much more oppressed than Dalit males. Dalit Women Forum is an organization that advocates for Dalit rights in Bangladesh. They work in 33 colonies in Dhaka, Narayanganj, and Keraniganj. Basically, they are aware of women's issues such as gender equality, reproductive health, civil rights, government services, etc. They will also have an advocacy meeting with local government officials such as ward councillors, networking with other women's activities in civil society and the media, helping female students with stipends, income generating financial assistance, capacity building training. Every year, they host a women conference where Dalit women may discuss their experience. They are also lobbying for anti-discrimination laws. Our present government is doing a lot for us, particularly for housing. In numerous districts and towns, including Dhaka, Narayanganj, Chittagong, and Borishal, multiple straw buildings has been constructed by Dalits. This has enhanced the equality of life for Dalits. We are really grateful to the current government. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sonu. To bring the situation of Dalit women in Bangladesh and what the Dalit Women's Forum is doing in Bangladesh. And now I'd like to go to Simona, who's representing the Roma community from Romania, but she lives in Macedonia and will bring in the whole issue of Roma women.
Thank you, Bina. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm not representing the Roma community, but I am a part of the Roma community. Yeah, so welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I think that's very important to see that you as an audience are joining. That's a sign of solidarity, at least towards me. So what does it mean for me to be a Roma? Many of you might know that a Roma, also known under the pejorative name as a gypsy or a Tsigan, this is a bad name. It means untouchable. We are associated with music, with dance, colorfulness, shininess, and so on and so forth. And many times you are also associated with negative stereotypes like beggars, criminals, and so on. And I think me as an activist and other colleagues of mine, we are trying to deconstruct this type of stereotypes about the Roma community, and also try to show how discrimination is affecting, our lives, how discrimination is forcing some Roma families to beg, or how discrimination is forcing Roma women to become prostitutes. Yeah, so we are trying to raise awareness about this. Roma are encountering, as I said, a specific form of discrimination known in Europe as anti-gypsies. Some countries across Europe, or at least two of them, Spain and Romania, have already started to implement legislation addressing anti-gypsies, but this is not a wide European practice. And that's why having a platform like GFoD to bring the experience of other similar communities that are suffering this type of discrimination, it's crucial. So we are the largest CDWD group in Europe. We are between 16 and 18 million Roma in Europe. And many of us are living in Turkey, Romania, most of the Central Eastern European countries and the Western Balkans. Existing data, which is very scarce, unfortunately, shows that most of the Roma are unvaccinated, have poor than average nutrition, and experience a high rate of tuberculosis. This disparity, as I said, it's mainly due to the persistent discrimination, access to services, but also the marginalization of the Roma community. The same data also shows that we lack basic housing utilities, infrastructure, and many Roma families cannot afford to pay for or to have a washing machine, to have electricity in their houses, and we still have the so-called informal Roma settlements that are rather segregated neighborhoods placed at the outskirts of villages or cities, which are a source of disease, of segregation and the effects of it. But today I'll be speaking about Roma women, and before I focus a bit on the specific issues, I just want to acknowledge that Roma women are quite diverse. Yeah, so if you would maybe you can see from some of the pictures, Roma women are quite diverse in terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of belonging to a traditional community or not. It also depends on which group of Roma you are, because Roma we have different groups based on the traditional occupation that we have. So I'm coming from a horse dealer group. My partner is coming from a blacksmith group, the so-called Kovac. So the occupation that we have, it's also part of our identity as work. But as I said, also in terms of gender, we are having a growing, a strong Roma LGBT community, a feminist movement. So the Roma women in their diversity, should be acknowledged. But as I said, today I'll be speaking a bit about the marginalized Roma women, because I think it's my responsibility to address the situation these women are facing. And what we have seen in the last period, but also after the fall of the communism in many Central Eastern European countries, is that Roma women were facing forced sterilization. And we know from where this practice is coming from, right? Like, you don't have to reproduce, you have high fertility rate, and so on. So this is still happening, or maybe in other forms, which is still a form of violence. For example, in January, there was a case in Serbia when a Roma woman was subject to obstetric violence, and as a result, her child died. But also in Romania last year, one Roma woman was not allowed to give birth in the hospital. So she delivered in front of the hospital. This is incredible in Europe today. Yeah, so all this type of medical negligence, stereotypes from the healthcare professionals significantly affects the life of Roma women. So this is not happening only in the field of health, but also in the field of employment. Many Roma women are selling flowers, so they are still not part of the formal economy. We have the so-called public work schemes, which are measures by certain governments in Europe, like Hungary or Slovakia, I think, to provide some sort of social protection towards the Roma community. But this is just a reproduction of inequality by making Roma work as street cleaners, as public, as park cleaners, and so on. So many of these Roma women are kind of forced or pushed towards this type of informal jobs that leaves them without social protection, without pension, without all sorts of benefits. There are some initiatives, speaking about good practices, there are some initiatives that are trying to support Roma women entrepreneurs, but the numbers are quite low. Even there are some efforts, but the numbers are quite low. So there's a need to push towards more Roma women participation and inclusion. As Bina said, I'm part of the European Roma Grassroots Organization Network. It's a network of grassroots organizations bringing together 30 plus such organizations. And we also have a member from Greece, a Roma Women Association, bringing together about 400 Roma women. So that's something. But we know that many of the Roma women civil society organizations are not empowered enough. So we also empowered don't have access to finances and don't have maybe the capacity to deal with Roma women issues. And we have launched a survey. You have a copy there, or at least a snippet. We have launched a survey with GFoD, with ERGO, with the Romalitico and the Romani collective of gender experts. We have launched a survey to see what are the challenges of the Roma women in Europe. So ERGO was kind of taking the lead in this type of research. So we are doing research. We are having Roma women organization members in our network, but we are also trying to do advocacy and to make sure that the Roma women priorities are included into the European Union agenda, because we as ERGO, what we try to do is to advocate with regards to the European Union institutions on being more sensitive and aware and inclusive towards the Roma community. So I'll stop here, but I look forward for the rest of the discussion.
Thanks, Simona. A couple of years ago, I remember that in the sugarcane fields in India, women were forced to remove their uterus so that they will not get periods, and they'll not have don't have to take maternity leave, so that they can continue to work in these fields without. So similar experiences across the board when it comes to women, and how women's bodies are used to further either business interests or patriarchy is very clearly seen in some of this. So I would like to open the floor. Before I open the floor, I'd like to welcome and request Dr. Coulibaly Teokora from the Ministry of the Family, Women and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, and to just say a few words, and then we can open the floor. So I don't know if this mic will go till there, Carla. Yeah, maybe better.
Thank you. Ben là, je vais parler en français. Je me sens plus mieux en français. Je ne sais pas si vous pourrez traduire après. Okay. Ok, d'accord. Je suis Dalit. Je suis originaire de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je fais la recherche dans le domaine de l'intelligence. Et je m'intéresse beaucoup. Alors, la Côte d'Ivoire, c'est un pays de l'Afrique. Et donc, la Côte d'Ivoire regorge plus de 60 ethnies. Alors, mon pays, effectivement, vit en Afrique. C'est seulement que il y a eu des moments difficiles au niveau, donc, et il y a eu le problème de l'ivoirité, qui était un concept qui marginalisait un certain nombre de peuples. notamment les peuples issus du nord de la Côte d'Ivoire. Moi-même, je suis originaire. Et donc, beaucoup de populations ont souffert. Et aujourd'hui, quand j'entends en tout cas parler contre la ségrégation, contre les... Alors, je pense que ça m'intéresse beaucoup. Et la dernière fois, donc, je m'engager dans cette lutte. Et donc, au niveau de la Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons certaines ethnies qui sont minoritaires, voilà, qui peut-être souffrent de leur minorité. Les cultures ne sont pas bien connues de tous. Et donc, je pense que c'est un devoir pour nous autres. Et donc, je suis vraiment engagé dans cette cité, au Brésil, au nord, en Europe. Nous allons donc lutter ensemble. Merci à tous et bon atelier.
Thank you. I'd like to urge the people joining us on Zoom to also put in your questions, and Pranjali will send these questions to me once we get it. So I'd like to open the floor now, and I already have a hand there. So I don't know how we're doing with the mic. Maybe they have to come in front. Oh, after. They're there. Is it late? Just maybe after this one question, or yeah. Please, I think you'll have to come here. Sorry, we have a problem.
Thank you very much. I'm Shikha from VSO in Nepal. I'm just echoing and hearing all the same stories. We also hear that in Nepal. In Nepal, we have caste-based discrimination that puts women in different vulnerable situations. But all these women, again, are not same. We have these deprived women belonging to LGBTQ community, being the person with disability, being related to the poor communities, so-called poor communities, and also the untouchables. So how are you dealing with this complexity of intersectionality? Are there any best practices that we can celebrate and we can learn from?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, thoughts? We have somebody from the Palenque community from Brazil. Oh, sorry, from Colombia. If you can say a few words, yeah. Her name is Neris. Neris, if you can say a few words, also coming from the communities discriminated.
Buenas tardes para todas. Mi nombre es Neris Isabel Barrio Reyes. Soy de la comunidad palenquera, ubicada en Colombia, efectivamente. Palenque es un pueblo que queda relativamente a 1 hora de Cartagena. Y también hemos vivido la discriminación y el racismo producto de la colonización. Y Palenque es hoy patrimonio oral e inmaterial de la humanidad, otorgado por la UNESCO. Y eso ha facilitado que se den algunos avances en materia de derechos para la comunidad. Sin embargo, la discriminación y el racismo estructural también nos golpea considerablemente. Palenque es considerado patrimonio inmaterial por tener unas prácticas y unas manifestaciones propias como una lengua palenquera, unos rituales como el lumbalú, que es un ritual para despedir a los muertos, una organización política y social, la música palenquera, tradición oral, y todos estos aspectos permiten que Palenque sea reconocido también por su proceso libertario de independencia y de resistencia que tenemos en todo el país. Pero también somos un ejemplo para el mundo. Las mujeres palenqueras somos la columna vertebral, diría, de la sociedad palenquera, en cuanto somos las que transmitimos los saberes tradicionales de la medicina, de la lengua, pero también, si han ido a Cartagena, observan a las mujeres palenqueras vender en las ciudades, en la ciudad de Cartagena, pero también en el país, con palanganas en la cabeza, como una forma de trabajo forzado, podríamos decir, no propiamente dicho, pero que es producto del proceso de colonización que la mujer, al igual que el hombre, le tocó trabajar en condiciones fuertes de trabajo y aún lo siguen realizando. Pero eso tiene, desde el punto de vista positivo, se deconstruye el tema de género a partir de que la mujer asume un rol activo dentro de la sociedad, al ser una mujer que transgrede con su ejercicio de también aportar a la economía del hogar y a la sociedad palenquera un rol totalmente diferente, por cuanto en la comunidad palenquera se ejerce un matriarcado que no indica que no exista machismo en la sociedad dentro de la misma comunidad y que también suframos muchas formas de discriminación. Porque el hecho de que la mujer es considerada como un papel importante incluso para la sociedad cartagenera, por ser un ícono representativo y emblemático de la sociedad cartagenera, no es necesariamente exenta de prejuicios, discriminaciones y estereotipos de género, donde se asume que la mujer, al ser la que vende fuera de la comunidad, mantiene al hombre, es una mujer que habla fuerte, es una mujer que asume el machismo, cosas que no son reales, en el sentido de que el hombre se queda trabajando en el campo, o algunos, que ya también ha cambiado la historia y trabajan en diferentes áreas, entonces los hombres también aportan a la economía del hogar. Sin embargo, podríamos decir que se ejerce un matriarcado pasivo en cuanto la mujer no tiene autonomía para tomar ciertas decisiones. Aun cuando la mujer palenquera es un ejemplo de feminismo bastante fuerte porque representa fuerza, carácter, una mujer que maneja su patrimonio y aporta a la economía del hogar. No podemos tampoco descartar o invisibilizar que la cultura tiene algunos aspectos que no son tan positivos y que situaciones como la poligamia o prácticas que no se apoyan en la comunidad, en las mujeres de esta época, pues las mujeres que ya tenemos una formación académica, son evidencian de que no todas estamos de acuerdo frente a ciertas prácticas que se asumen en la comunidad. Las mujeres vendedoras de dulces y de cocadas, de frutas en las playas de Cartagena y en varias ciudades, es importante que estas prácticas sean transformadas a partir del apoyo de las instituciones, tanto públicas como privadas, que garanticen que puedan trabajar en otras condiciones diferentes a las que han llevado históricamente y que ha afectado su salud, tanto física como psicológica, al estar sometidas a las inclemencias del sol, de la lluvia, pero también a condiciones de cargas pesadas. ¿Y cómo podemos transformar esto? Garantizando que sus productos se comercialicen y se elaboren de manera diferente y que hayan puntos físicos donde ya puedan vender sus productos o cadenas de almacenes que le puedan comprar estos productos. También a nivel de la comunidad palenquera es importante articular el tema de turismo, que es una de las formas de economía y que permite la sostenibilidad de la comunidad palenquera a partir de que somos reconocidos como patrimonio, pero que debe negociar tanto como el turismo es una fuente de ingreso, pero también los valores de la cultura palenquera no se pierdan y se puedan trabajar proyectos en los que el turismo haga visible también las situaciones en las que vive la comunidad, pero que se puedan transformar a través del fortalecimiento de las familias, de la convivencia en la comunidad, de las problemáticas que presenta el pueblo de Palenque. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. If we don't have any questions from the floor, yes, please.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, panelists. My name is Camila. I'm from Mexico. I'm a teacher, a middle school teacher. So my question is, in Mexico, we are having also these problems, starting with children that have a mother language, indigenous language, and starting with the language is a barrier for discrimination. So my question for you is, I would like to know if the girls and teenagers in your community experience this discrimination, and if you have any strategy to break out of this stereotype. How does the girls and teenagers doing? Okay, thank. Yeah. Any other panelists? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Paul. Can someone give this?
Thank you very much, JB. I know I have been seeing many of you around in the last 2 weeks, corridors, talking to people like Dr. Kule and meeting the members of the state. What are you here for? What is it that United Nations can do? Actually, is it not worth the time to work in our own villages and cities and mobilize the communities? Do you think anything good will come here from United Nations? My name is Paul Divakar, and I'm also with the Global Forum. And what is it that you're asking here at the Commission on Status of Women?
So thanks, Paul, for that question. We have one or two questions from the folks joining us online. We have one question specifically to Patricia from Naveen, who asks whether we could request Patricia to throw some light on the contribution of Quilombola women towards achieving climate justice. And we have another question from Van Bisseng, who's saying, how do we get women from the Bororo community in Cameroon to participate in the next elections in Cameroon? So quite a wide range of questions, but I'd now like to request maybe we can start, Simona, if you would like to also, if in your responses, can you also say that was our next question, Paul, that why are we here and how we're connecting the work from the subnational to the global, and how we're connecting this work, because the important thing is that our work at the national level. So none of us are coming here instead of the national work. This is just an extended work, but most of our work, I mean, many of us are working on the ground for the last 15, 20 years, or people like Paul for the last 40 years. So this is not despite the national work. We want to make that very clear, but I think in our responses will be a little bit more clear. So Simona, I can start from.
Thank you very much. I would like to respond to your question. I'm academic, and I have finished my studies in education policy. And this is what triggered my my interest actually in education, the hard discrimination and school segregation of Roma children that was still, and it's still existing in Romania. So what we see is that there's the so-called internalized gypsyism among young Roma, because you go to a school that is not teaching you anything about your culture, or if there is something, it's very stereotypical. Pictures, the depictions of Roma. There's no mentioning of the contribution of Roma to the Romanian society. So that's one, the context of the teaching. The teaching content itself, it's very discriminatory or leaving out many communities. Then they don't see Roma teachers in their school, right? So it's different when you see a Roma teacher that can be a model for you, that can motivate you to grow. But me, when I was in the 8th grade, my teacher told me you cannot go to high school because, you know, you don't have the ability. So that pushed me, that anger, I changed it into resilience, and I proved that I can go to high school. So you don't feel encouraged by the professors, by the school system to continue. And now moving a bit on the other side, like even in school councils or all sorts of children participation bodies, Roma children are not included. And this is, again, by default, because maybe the most privileged children. So there's no way for even young people to participate, to be part of the system. So it's, as I said, it's school segregation, discrimination, but also all the interaction of inside the institution, the educational system. And now to Paul, we have as a group, we have launched a call to action of women part of communities discriminated on work and descent. And we have specific demands what we want to other stakeholders, including the UN system, to do. And especially for the Commission on the Status of Women, we would highly recommend to have a focus on this type of discrimination, because for me, and actually for many of, actually for all except me, except Bina, is the first time that we are attending the CSW. So that's an achievement that we are bringing grassroots women to this type of high level political platform to discuss. So that's an achievement in itself, I think. So we have specific demands for the CSW, also for the United Nations, to even come with a resolution on the rights of communities discriminated on work and descent. And I go back to your point. This is not similar to being an indigenous or aboriginal person. It's a totally different type of discrimination, and it's not discrimination based on the work. Like if you're doing sexual work, it's not it's not that. You have to take the concept all together. It's discrimination based on work and descent. Yeah, like you're getting that. Maybe some would say like this is how this is different from other forms of discrimination. And maybe we should just focus on the broader concept of discrimination, but that's not the case, because we are 270 million people that are experiencing this form of discrimination. And as Bina was saying, when I hear sometimes my colleagues speaking, I feel like they're speaking about my community. So yeah, thank you. And I will suggest you to have a look at our call for demands.
Thank you, Simona. I request Patricia to respond.
Novamente, boa tarde. Falar sobre o clima, né? E também sobre a sua pergunta, tá bom? A gente criou o coletivo de mulheres para cuidar e a gente vem desenvolvendo isso nos 26 estados do Brasil. A realidade é a mesma nossa, não está longe. A CONAQ tem teve um trabalho no 19 e 20, no ECAM, comunidades. Somos aqui. A gente sempre mantém o manejo florestal. A gente cuida. A nossa ancestralidade. Então, se a gente não cuidar, a nossa terra, para onde nós vamos? E estar aqui está sendo muito importante. E digo mais. É o momento que me sinto mais forte para continuar lutando por igualdade de gênero, pois através dessas e dá uma potência muito grande a nossas vozes. Que específicas ações enfrentadas por nós mulheres quilombolas. Eu, como brasileira, mulher negra, quilombola, agricultora, me sinto potente. Um pouco emocionada, porque só assim sabemos o status do mundo, outro global. É isso.
Thank you, Patricia. I request Queen to respond.
Thank you, Bina. The question from Cameroon, I just acknowledged the presence of my husband online, Van Bissing. He's the one asking this question. Thank you for keeping late and in solidarity with us. A human rights defender too, and very great activist. So I think his question is about elections coming for 2025 in Cameroon. And here we can engage Nimbororo women and girls, because this is a community that do not have access to land. The women of these communities are relegated to work like milk selling from the cows that their husband are mending. They are also relegated to hair braiding and also begging. So how do we engage them? I think these women do not have access to education and do not even have birth certificates and even identity cards. So you can think of engaging with elections, because it has to do with voting. You will not be able to vote if you don't even have an ID card, if you don't have a birth certificate. So there is a need to advocate before the government to issue the possibility for these women to have free access to be issued a birth certificate with no pay. because the barrier is also the process in doing this identity card and birth certificate. They don't have the means. So if this can be free, that they can have this birth certificate free, they have the identity card free, then a training on citizenship will be like the first step, engaging them to actually be active in the coming 2025 presidential elections in Cameroon. Thank you.
So I'd encourage others online, if you'd like to also raise your hand and ask questions, we'll be happy to do that. I'd like to respond to the question of intersectionality and how do I think we did not respond to the question from the sister from Nepal. Yes, definitely. I think we need to do more to bring in intersectionality within these groups. We must also acknowledge that the struggle is real, you know, because we ourselves are from the discriminated communities. And so just coming on like what Simona said, other than me and Simona, it's the first time for all the others to share a global platform like this and be here on a panel speaking. It's quite emotional for all of us because they're all grassroots workers, you know, working on the ground, and coming to CSW68 probably wasn't even a dream. Forget about being here, but wasn't even a dream. And that dream was made a reality. So we're taking small steps, but definitely we need to look at intersectionality within our communities, the LGBTQI youth communities, the aged, you know. I think it's really important to broaden that scope. But I think we are here now. And I think the future should be for Dalits, indigenous, you know, communities discriminated on work and descent, Roma, you know, all these different communities. I think we have to ensure that the future is handed over to the communities, leadership is given to the communities from the discriminated, because unless that happens, I think the wheel will not change. Women, you know, as well. So I think somewhere that change is happening today, because I think 5 years ago, we wouldn't even dream of having a panel like this, you know, the different women coming from these different discriminated communities coming and being here and being able to speak. So I think that is in itself an acknowledgement of the work that is being done on the ground. The other thing I'd also like to respond to what Paul was saying was the work that has happened globally and our demand from the UN is that UN has recognized several marginalization. You know, the indigenous groups have a declaration at the UN. Along those lines, the communities discriminated on work and descent are also demanding, or it is one of our demands at the UN to come out with a declaration for the people of communities on the rights of the people of communities discriminated on work and descent, like what Simona has said, but also moving in smaller steps that we could think of a working group to come together, formed by both northern as well as southern countries, to form this working group so that they can then, you know, look in depth of these issues and what is the uniqueness of this kind of discrimination versus other discrimination. I think it's important to bring that. But it's also important to know that there's 270 million people of us in this in the world today, which means that if you put all of us together in one country, we'll probably be the 5th or the 6th biggest country in the world. So we must not forget that we are not a small population either. You know, we are a very huge population. And so it's more important that the reasons that we are asking for some of these things has to be justified, because that the discrimination and vulnerabilities that we face are so intertwined and very similar in all these different regions, but also in terms of numbers, we're a big number. And within that, if you look at intersectionality, you know, there are far greater impact on the different people within the communities. So if there are, I don't know if there are any questions online, but I'd open the floor the second time if there are any questions within the audience here, and then we can close with the final remarks. Yes. Please introduce yourself. You can come here so that we can...
Okay. Thank you, all the panelists. It was so very inspiring, and it's very touching for me to listen to the different form of discrimination. My name is Joysha. I come from India, and I belong to a faith-based network. So I want to know, especially from like Simona and from Europe and other places where there is strong faith communities, how is the church supporting you? Or how do you find church as part of your struggles? And I also want to know, like, how do you see that church women can be part of and be supportive in strengthening this kind of discrimination, like in order to bring help you to come out of this discrimination? Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you, Joshua. Anybody else?
Yeah. She talked about the church base, you know. In the community, I'm in New York. In the community of Queens, where I'm at, we have, I'm with women in my church. So what we do is we have activities for the community. You know, we help the community. We have food pantry, we have cake day, we have a day where we just bring them in to know who Jesus is. And we have leaders come in and talk to them, to empower them. You know, we try to uplift them. If, like she was talking about passport, if they don't have a passport or something, the pastor and the bishops, they get involved and help them if they can't read to get their papers together. So, you know, as leaders or people in the community, the church base is very important. The ministry in an organization or in a city, there's a lot of churches in New York City, but the church ministry basis in anyone's life is very important, because when you're like, you come from a church-based background, it's a little better than coming from a other background, because the church base helps you with some of the things that you need to do. You understand? Even when it comes to finances, the church would allow you put up an offering. And I'm telling you, I put up offering and I've been blessed. So I'm just saying that, you know, the church base in any city or any nation is good, because we also have churches all over. We have churches in Kenya, and we go to Nigeria all the time to empower the pastors. So we basically help them, because church-based, some people don't believe in, I'm a Christian, and I believe God first and everything next, because with God, everything is possible.
Any other questions? And then we can ask the panelists to respond. Okay, so while in your response, I think we should not just focus on church, but as faith. You know, it could be any faith, not just the Christian faith. If there are others in this panel who don't, you know, adhere to a Christian faith, but also any other faith, please feel, yes. So no, I'm asking the panelists so that when they respond, it's not just about church, but it's also about any other faith that you're free to practice. So quick responses, Queen?
Yeah, thank you, Bina. The issue of faith is very, very important when it comes to issues in general. And if I should bring it to communities, we are seeking for solidarity from all the actors, like as we are seeking from bilateral, multilateral groups. It is also important for us to actually seek solidarity from faith-based. You know, even having women from these churches, women from this faith-based organization as supporters to actually empower the women from these communities is something very welcome for us. If we have women from this church, women from these ministries, women from this faith base that are willing and are standing as voluntary to actually empower women from these communities. This is also an action that help to address the issues the CDWD communities are facing as far as empowerment is concerned. It could be training them, petty businesses, income generating activities, how to provide milk and other issues that can help them to become, how do they call that? Yes, that they can do on their own without, yes, self-employed, without waiting for other supports. This is something very great. So in our next strategies, we will also look at including faith-based and also looking at how we can engage groups, either women, youth, or men from these churches to support our communities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I will be a bit contentious maybe, but so I come from Romania, and before the Romanian state was established, the Roma were slaves for 500 years, and they were enslaved with the support of the Romanian Orthodox Church, which I'm now in the church center with the whole council of churches around. But we were pushing for the recognition of the role of the Orthodox Church in doing this type of violence. So there's no acknowledgement even nowadays about the role of the church in enslavement of the Roma. So what we are pushing for is this. So a lot of Roma don't have also a religion. So they're adapted to the religion of the countries where they are based. But for example, in Romania, have some communities that are more traditional, and they went towards the new evangelical faith. I don't want to give names, but those type of groupings are not encouraging this type of activism among like identity-based activists, but faith-based activists, to say so. So that's like a bit stopping. I mean, the life of people is getting better, like what Minister was saying here, in terms of you know, food and helping each other. But when it comes to your identity as a Roma, that's not an issue of concern anymore. So you're not encouraged to take a lead.
Eu peço desculpa.
I apologize. I don't, she did not have access to the interpretation, so she doesn't know what the question. We do not work with the Catholic Church, for example. Not with the Catholic Church itself. We have our celebrations, we go to church and come back home, but we don't work exclusively with them.
I do know that in Asia, many communities discriminated on work and descent, Dalits, have converted to Christianity, Islam, to sort of move away from the caste system. So emancipation and liberation has come because of the choice of religion that we have made. And there has to be a lot of acknowledgement in that in the South Asia region. It may not be the same in the other regions, but you know, it has definitely helped many people to be liberated through education, etc. So that's also something that's very historical, and it's good to mention that. Yeah. Any questions? I don't see any questions online. I think we can wrap up. I'd like to give all the panelists 1 minute to wrap up on what would you like to, as a strategy, you know, how do we link what we're doing at the local level to what we're doing at the UN, or how do we take this work back to the national level? Maybe 1 minute quickly. I'd request Simona to start this time, so that you quickly give the strategies, and then we move to others. And also, if there is something that is really appreciative of our local governments and the state, I think it'll be good to acknowledge and say that, so that, you know, others can also take these as good practices.
Thank you, Bina. So one of the key issues is that whenever I go or we go as activists to the Romanian different ministries or agencies to tell them, for example, that in the strategy for the children's rights, there was no mentioning of Roma children, even though the poverty among Roma children is like 6. So whenever we go to ministries, to state institutions, to share about the issues that we are facing, we are not heard. But coming here to CSW, meeting the Romanian permanent mission, meeting representatives from the ministries, they feel like, okay, so we have to deal with this issue. So going back home, telling that we've been here, we spoke with different country representatives, gives a bit of weight and a bit of pressure maybe to them to act. So that's very important, that we don't have access, through our national platforms to be strong enough or effective enough to address some of the issues. I mean, of course, there are some activist networks and platforms, but having this type of platform, and especially linking with other communities, and I think also the Romanian permanent mission was very positively influenced by seeing, okay, so this is not only a Roma thing, so it's about more communities. So yeah, that's the strategy. The next step, it's going back and talking with the relevant ministries about what happened, what we discussed, what were the conclusions, what's the call for action about, and what do we want, and pushing them to act.
Patricia, in 1 minute, if you can just wrap up of what would you think is the strategy to bring in this work that we're doing back at national level, and how do we connect it? And any other strategies or good practices that you'd like to share.
Eu fico eternamente lisonjeada por estar representando o meu país através do CSW, que oferece um enorme espaço para nós mulheres quilombolas que estamos isoladas das políticas públicas específicas para nós mulheres do campo. Aqui, redes de apoio, troca de conhecimento, e movimentos sociais em nível global. É considerada esse encontro aqui anual o maior da ONU sobre igualdade de gênero e o empoderamento da mulher. E retorno ao meu país com uma por nossas mulheres quilombolas do nosso Brasil. E fica aqui o meu abraço, a minha projetos futuros.
Sonu?
Thank you. Actually, I come here and I learn lots of things, like, like we have a platform to tell them, like CSW, and whatever the Samona said, like we are now here and we are speaking with like missions and lots of the very important people, but whatever like we go and do in our country, it's like very tough, like sometimes we are want to speak with like maybe counselors, it is very tough, like local counselors, how it will be going the mission, or yeah. So but I get the strength, like I go my community and maybe doing lots of work with them, because now I know, like like before I just thought like Dalits, they have lots of problem, but whenever I come here I learn lots, like in like all over the world have like different type of problems, so it's like really present for me to I learn lots. And thank you. And whatever I want in like the one of question is like a language, you know, like language barrier. So in Bangladesh also have like language barrier problem. Like we are coming from the India, like our forefathers, and we are speaking in community in Hindi, but our academic is Bangla. So when we go like in school and colleges, so the teachers and other friends, they can identify like our pronouns is not like that. So sometimes we face like this type of problem. So it will be work, like it also be harder is like our study. We learn very hard because Bangla is our second language. So what I want in like if I go and like for my government, I also had a lots of lobbying about this issue. Like if like first of all, they can allow the community students like in every schools. When they see like identify, sometimes they didn't like accept. Yeah. So I want like we can go like whatever like where we want to go, like which schools. And second of all, like make a quota for us. It's like very tough, like sometimes we are drop, you know, when we not understand like and sometimes they teach us like when they recognize we are from Dalit. So I think education is like very important. Like if we are complete our studies, it will be work. Otherwise, how can we make the boys? So I this is my like first and last thing. Like I really want to work for this issue. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, they said it all. They said it all. Just saying why we are meeting the grassroots, the communities, to seek for the solutions together. We are also meeting up with the decision makers and all the institutions for them to pay attention to these communities and see how they can actually help. So we come down and up, and at a certain point, we are going to get a solution to this. And also going back to the communities to say we are gaining in solidarity, because all they need is visibility, and also knowing that they have people supporting them. We had the delegate from Ivory Coast that is giving a full support. Communities hearing this is already an empowerment. We met permanent missions, and many of them are willing and engaged to support the cause. So just bringing this to communities is something very, very grateful for them. So this is my final remarks. Thank you.
Yes. The last one, thank you, GFoD. Like when I come, I feel like GFoD is like a good umbrella. So there we can feed everyone. We can learn from there. And also like if we want to say like our problem, like we need to this, it will be a good platform. Thank you so much.
Let's hope that umbrella keeps spreading and becoming bigger. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who's very similar to Martin Luther King for Dalits in South Asia and especially India, and he wrote the Constitution of India, said that if you were to measure the progress of a country, you have to measure the progress that women have made. And I think that is such a key standard to look at how countries are either developing or will develop in the future, unless you keep women at the center of development or the SDG 2030 agenda. And not just any women, because women is not a homogeneous group, but women from the discriminated communities, discriminated on work and descent, indigenous communities, women from the LGBTQI, folks from the LGBTQI communities. I think it's important to refocus on how policy should be made. And finally, I'd like to say that this year's theme of CSW was looking at social protection, but it was also about resourcing, and we didn't speak so much about where the money is coming from to address the issues. So I'd like to say that it is very important that we look at gender budget as a tool to look at how we can, whether it's for entrepreneurship, whether it's for livelihood, whether it's for employment. I think one of the good practices that we can take forward is that we have to have specific targeted budgets, and money should be allocated, you know, if we are really serious about ensuring that the women from these communities are able to empower themselves and stand up and take this work forward. Finally, I'd like to say Desmond Tutu said that I don't want crumbs from your table, but I want the full menu of rights. We are here today. The future is for us to take that future. It should be in the hands of women. It should be in the hands of the marginalized women. That is the only way that you can go forward. Jai Bhim and salam to everyone. Just before I close, I'd like to thank the GFoD team, Carla, Rohan, Johannes, Simona, Queen, Selene, and back home, Pranjali, who is doing the Zoom, fantastic work, Naveen, Vinay, Shalini, Paul, and the rest, I don't know who all, and the interpreters, yes, Anna, who is here, and I don't know the names of the interpreters who are there, Fatumata, Zainabu. I think this is the team that makes this work. I think a big round of applause for them, wherever they are in the world. Some of them have joined us. It's, I think, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock early morning back home. So thank you very much, and appreciate that you have joined us in solidarity, and we hope to meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Safia, Morgan, Elvira, Laura, Camila, and Thais. Big thank you for the interpretation.